Thank you for joining us for this, our second episode of the official podcast of Lancaster Public Library, Checked Out. I'm Theodore.
I'm Amanda.
And thank you for joining us again. We really do appreciate it. We had a good reception for the first one, and we're excited to do it again. And we actually have a pretty decent slate this month. So, of course, we're going to talk about what we're reading.
Of course.
Yes, we have to.
Can't stop.
Yes, exactly. There's actually usually a lot of minutes of recording that don't go in because we just keep talking about other things. Yeah. But then we also have our executive director, Lissa Holland. She's been with the organization for 17 years now. And we want to talk to her about, well, actually, Amanda, you did the interview. What did you want to talk with Lissa about?
Yeah, we had said in the first episode of the podcast that one of our goals was to introduce you to library staff members, give you that peek behind the curtain, and help you get to know not just the library faces that you might see day to day in story time or behind the desk, but the people that are in the meetings that they're privileged to attend.
Exactly.
Felt natural to start with the person who's in charge of steering the good ship LPL.
Exactly. And I do feel like, a person like Lissa, an executive director, I feel like almost in any organization, I feel like the question is like, what does a role like that look like? Yeah, exactly. Because, you think about a librarian, you think about a circulation assistant, you can kind of see them in action, but there's a lot of important things going on behind the scenes, and I think we'll shed some light on that later. So it's fantastic. So with that said, what are you reading right now?
Well, of course, I have more than one going at once,
Absolutely.
Like we said before. My fiction read for the month is The Witching Tide by Margaret Meyer. Nice. I am a sucker for any sort of witch trial. Yes. Historical fiction.
Yes.
So that's what this is. Set in 1640s England. It's about a midwife who gets roped into checking other women in her village for the mark of the devil during witch trials. So it's her being torn between self-preservation and people in her community, not trusting her any more than, and that complex web of emotions running high during a setting like that.
We can call them emotions.
Right. And based on a true story, which is always an interesting framework for fiction. I really like historical fiction that has a root in real events.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I'm liking it so far.
And it's kind of apt. It's not necessarily spooky season anymore, but I kind of carry that into Thanksgiving.
I will read things like this all year round. Witch trials, plague fiction, some of the things that people would leave just for Halloween time. I'm like, it's an all year round thing.
Exactly.
So, and this book also, this is my personal copy and comes from independent bookstore up in Rhode Island that I visit every year on vacation. Absolutely love. So it's always nice to be supporting places like that, in addition to checking out books from my friendly local librarians.
Exactly. And I really like the binding on that, especially the rough cut pages.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See, controversial.
Okay.
I am not a fan of a deckled edge, but
I like
each their own.
It's kind of, I feel like it fits the
vibe of a historical fiction book.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah.
These are the debates that librarians get into. Rough edge pages or not.
That's fair. Well, also, I think we're seeing more now, especially with the new books that have been coming in, a lot of like multicolored design, just all kinds of wacky things happening. And it's kind of cool.
Books looking more like a collector's item
than a book.
Which, to be fair, long ago, they were more of a collector's item than an everyday household object.
And
so
for some of us, they're still
back.
a collector's item.
Right. Looking at you, all of the books that I have yet to read and are just sitting in my house.
And it does happen. Even there was, I think I've mentioned before, there was a Philip K. Dick collection that I forget who did. And it was all of his books and all of his short stories, but that were designed to look kind of like an art piece, like a very similar package. And it was one company that did it, but it was an exorbitant amount of money. Someday.
I know. I have collections like that too. I love the Penguin editions of the classics like Little Women or Little Princess, or that I love the designs on those. They're going to be investments over time.
Yeah, I get that. So what else do you have going on?
Yeah, my nonfiction read for the month then is The Five by Hallie Rubenhold.
Okay.
This is about the 5 victims of Jack the Ripper, but rather than focusing on the crimes themselves, it is 5 sections entirely devoted to just talking about the lives of these women. Because Jack the Ripper case was in many ways the advent of the true crime craze that we have now, and turning serial killing into a spectacle that the general public fawns over and speculates about. But this is humanizing the women and telling their stories and dispelling some of the assumptions that the press and the police and various people involved in those cases perpetuated since the beginning. And it's been really moving so far to hear how their lives came to an end, but that they started out as ordinary citizens. And
I mean, these are real people with families and friends, and seeing some of the clippings, because that's been kind of, I'm not going to say a hot topic, but it's definitely like, I know Morbid did a multi-part series on those women. There's a YouTube channel, I think it's called Lamino. They do like long form essays, same thing. And it was fascinating seeing all of the newspaper clippings from the day that were genuinely some of the most absurd, disrespectful. Yes. Just
not caring about facts as long as there was excitement surrounding the story. Yeah.
It's brutal, but it sounds very interesting.
It's very good.
Okay. Yeah. Very nice. Cool.
So what about you? What are you reading right now?
So right now I'm listening to audiobooks because I had a little bit of a library accident. This looks way better than it did. I'm actually happy we're recording
Less
right
dramatic now.
There was this whole thing was covered. I lost a battle with a table, but everything's fine now. So I was out for a little bit. And actually the act of holding a book was not very comfortable, but luckily we have alternatives to that, and one of them is it is called Hoopla. You probably all know of like the ebooks and the e-audiobooks that we have through a service called Libby. That's where I think we focus a lot of our work when it comes to adding new books and new audiobooks. But we have this other service called Hoopla, and sometimes there are items you're looking for that aren't in Libby, aren't even in the library, in the case of the one thing that I just listened to, that you'll find in Hoopla. And that first one was actually I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. And I played, oddly enough, I'd mentioned this to you before, there is an old, I think it's like an MS-DOS video game. I really like old tech.
That will mean something to some of you.
It's fine. And I played that years and years ago, absolutely adored it. It's pretty much just a retelling of the story. But then I finally got around to actually listening to it, and it's read by the author, Harlan Ellison,
I think.
Harlan? Oh, I should remember.
I feel like such a bad librarian.
I know.
No, but well.
To be fair, I mean, he's one of those individuals that you don't hear as much about his other work.
He's not the James Pattersons of the world that are doing their press tours and
Exactly.
Okay.
And essentially it's, I mean, in keeping with the theme of last month, which I feel like has happened again with my other read, it's an AI called AM that has completely taken over after all of, the individual countries in the world set up an AI infrastructure that kind of started to, make modern life easier. Well, they combined together and they killed off humanity except for 5 people who it just continually will torture and won't let die for about 106 years at this point in the little short story. It's only about 15 pages. The thing I found fascinating about it, though, not so much necessarily the writing or even the concept at this point, because I think it's been done after the fact. But again, we are familiar with it as modern human beings, is that there's a piece that is kind of empathetic to the machine. Later on in the story, there's, a quote, I'm definitely going to paraphrase it, but about, Am, who is the AI, saying, that he hates these humans, and he hates them because he cannot wonder, he cannot wander, he just is. So he's not this God being. He was made and he can't do anything else. So that's where I guess the anger comes from. I mean, that's not really a justification, but it's an interesting concept.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept because if you are a created being, but you don't really have free will the way that a human does.
And you see their free will. Yeah.
Yes. Are you responsible for the havoc you wreak? Or I really like that concept. Yeah. I might just have to check it out.
It's very good. I mean, I will say it's a product of its time. It's an older short story. And occasionally there's some words that are used to describe specifically women. But I think it's more so because these 5 people genuinely do not like each other at this point in the story. They've been together and they've been tortured over and over again. But all in all, the concept is good. Yeah, definitely disclaimers. But the concept itself is, especially for the time, honestly fantastic. And I really enjoyed it.
Really fascinating.
And he read it in the most manic way. And it was beautiful to hear.
Audiobooks, the narrator makes or breaks it, right?
Exactly. Oh, yeah, and it did. And it's literally only 45 minutes. So
nice.
Definitely check it out. Yeah, that's on Hoopla. Really the only place I can find it, except YouTube, I guess, as well. But that's technically unofficial, so
as librarians, we're not going to advocate for legally listening to a book.
Yes, just use Hoopla. The other one, it was actually a recommendation from my wife, and I do have the book here, but it's Station 11. It is by Emily St. John Mandel. And I had never read any of her work before. I had been recommended it time and time and time again by different employees here, but finally my wife got around to reading this. It sounded like it was right up my alley. A big reason because she was describing how she kind of nailed a flu pandemic and how, and this is back in 2013, I believe this came out. And I guess, later on as you get into it, because I'm still only early on, but it sounds like she kind of nailed the response by the modern human as to how we would deal with that, how some people would deal with needing to stay inside or needing to get vaccinated, or the panic that would occur in different circles and different sects. So far, really, though, all I'm at is that there is a troupe. They do Shakespearean plays. A famous actor has a heart attack on stage. And so I'm not really into the dystopian aspects yet. It is very dystopian is my understanding, but the writing's fantastic. And my other understanding about Emily is that most of her works occur in the same universe. They're not sequels to each other.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
But there's kind of the expanded universe of Emily St. John Mandel, I guess, if you will. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it so far. Again, listening to it because, we'll let this heal. But yeah, it's been really good. I like it.
Great.
Yeah.
Always have more things that I'm going to have to add to my reading list by the time we're done talking. This is no exception.
Yes. So. I have to start doing nonfiction. I don't know what it is.
I am selective with the nonfiction that I read. We've talked about it before. I feel like I fall into more of the pop nonfiction than dense tomes. So maybe I'll recommend some that feel more like reading fiction than nonfiction, even if they're true stories.
And I don't blame you with that, because even before this, we were talking about one nonfiction book that I guess I have been reading, but I'm not going to recommend it because I'm only 200 pages in. But a brief history, but a brief history of Wales by John Davies. And
Sounds gripping.
it's
Sorry.
Listen.
Don't mean to be.
I love the motherland. All right. But it's fantastic. The information's great. It's so well researched, but it is a textbook essentially. Yeah. It's not formatted like one. It doesn't look like one, but it really kind of is. And so I get if you're trying to read for leisure, that's not really the move sometimes. So yeah. Well, I think what's up next, and I think it's a really important one, is your interview with Lissa Holland.
Yeah.
Do you want to say a little bit about that?
Yeah. It was an interesting experience to sit down with Lissa, even though she is the person who runs the library. To be honest, I don't see her too often because we're operating in different universes within the library.
Absolutely.
But it was nice to have a conversation to learn more about what she does day to day and some of the complexities of library work that she deals with as someone in a director position. So it was a fascinating conversation, and I'm excited to have you tune into that.
Fantastic. And this is your first interview you've ever done, right?
It's going to be obvious, but yes, it is the first one.
You did fantastic. I got to watch it, so it was a lot of fun. And I'm excited to hear from Lissa. I'm excited to hear more from you as well. So we'll switch over to that, and we'll be back after. Thanks. Well,
Lissa Holland, Executive Director of Lancaster Public Library, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. Yeah. This is exciting. I'm like your first guest.
You are. It felt like a natural choice as we're starting out the podcast to have the Executive Director on for our very first guest. And also, you are celebrating 17 years with LPL. So something to commemorate that anniversary, too.
It was just going to be a couple of years, I figured. I had moved from Dallas to Lancaster, and I was a school librarian, and thought, okay, well, I'll do a little stint in public libraries, and then I'll do something else.
Isn't that how it usually goes?
17 years later. But I'm very happy.
What inspired that change from school libraries to public libraries? What made you interested in that?
Well, it's very unusual for me to actually say these words, but in Texas, they have more restrictions for being a school librarian than they do in Pennsylvania. I had to have my master's focus on school librarianship, which I did. But my professor told me when I was in Dallas, I was going to the University of North Texas, and one of my professors said, you're moving to Pennsylvania. They have less rules, but they're very strict about it. And in Texas, I didn't have to have a student teaching background. I didn't have to have an undergraduate in education. Whereas when I moved here, they wanted me to go back and get my undergraduate in education, then student teach, and then become a school librarian. And I thought, originally my master's was my 50th birthday present to myself. And I thought, I am not about to go back to undergraduate and student teach when I have been a librarian for 3 years in Texas. So
just a few more hoops to jump through, right?
I was done jumping through hoops. So
well, we certainly benefited from that decision not to jump through more. So we appreciate it.
I really love being in the public sector. So,
that transitions into one of the things that I was most curious to ask you about. I know that speaking for myself and so many other people on staff, we find so much joy and fulfillment in our positions. And I know that operating at a leadership level, you do much different work on a day-to-day basis than someone who, say, staffs our circulation desk. Where do you find that sense of joy and purpose in the work that you do as a leader?
Well, I started as the branch manager at Mountville and worked up. So I loved really every spot that I had as I worked up the ladder. But to get here, the joy of being the leader is being one of the faces of the library and going out and being an advocate for Lancaster Public Library, getting to meet the community, getting to meet other organizations, finding out how we can work together with other organizations instead of reinventing the wheel. If somebody has expertise in one place and we have expertise, can we come together and benefit the community? So I love being the cheerleader, and that's what I feel at this point I am.
Well, we love having you as our cheerleader, and part of what you commented on really speaks to, I think, the heart of library work, especially in public libraries. We're that connecting point. We are the bridge between information and resources and the people in our communities who need that information.
Absolutely.
And you're the pinnacle of that connecting point for our public library. So
well, and I have worked under other directors who make it feel like every staff member, not even a librarian, but every staff member should have all the answers. And we can't. But we know where to find them, and we know how to gather information, and that's what I want. That was a really important part of when I first started, to let the staff know that I did not think we had to be everything to everybody, but we can find the answer and give it out. We don't have to be the expert, but we know we're the expert of finding the information and giving it to the needed patrons.
I really appreciate you bringing that philosophy to the work that we do, because personally, one of the parts of the job that I find exciting is that by not having all of the answers, I get to learn alongside our patrons daily.
Right.
I'm constantly encountering a new reference question or tech question that teaches me just as much as a community member.
Yeah.
And I'm so blessed to be in a profession that does that. So thank you for championing that.
Well, I think that's
philosophy.
really important. And another really important aspect of my job is to uphold what a library is. And it is, my mantra is that everyone who walks through the door should be able to find themselves somewhere in the library. There are books for everybody, and that everyone is welcome no matter what. And especially right now when some things are being pushed aside, I think, we are the institution that still serves everybody willingly, happily, wanting to be. And it's free.
Yes, one of the few places left that you can
Absolutely.
still exist without purchasing a coffee or a ticket or
Right.
yeah. It's a privilege to be that place in the community and have that as our vision.
Some people are so surprised to come in and see our robust DVD collection, and they don't understand that streaming is extremely expensive, especially as you begin buying all the various streaming companies.
Yeah.
And so, when we moved from our former location to here, people assumed we'd get rid of our DVD collection, and we continue to grow it because they are some of the most circulating pieces in the collection.
Thinking about those items that even if you don't own a DVD player anymore,
Right.
having our full diverse community in mind as we
Yes.
try to meet those needs.
Right. Yeah.
Which I know part of the challenge of that is funding for libraries.
Oh, yes.
Trying to supply materials that meet the needs of the community while grappling for that funding constantly. How is that as executive director? How do you try to find the funds to support the work that we do?
It's exhausting at times. And what the public really needs to understand, and it is very difficult because it's even hard for staff to understand, in so many parts in Pennsylvania as well as around the country, the public library is fully funded by local and state government. That is not the case in Lancaster County. One library is funded by its municipality, which is Manheim Township. All of the others, we have to go and raise local funding ourselves. Lancaster Public Library has the largest service area, so we have 14 municipalities. And it is not a state mandate on how much they give. Since I have been here in the 17 years, it has not changed. It's recommended that a municipality give $5 per capita. It has been $5, and prices have increased in the 17 years I've been here.
Imagine.
And you know, we are going against budgets that have to, you know, employ firemen, police. I mean, life and death, EMS, and so, you know, it's hard to say we would like this when budgets are getting tighter and tighter. So that's a challenge. And then the state and county money that comes to us gets divided between all the libraries. In many counties across the Commonwealth, they are all one big library. They have, like, as in New York, they have Martin Library, and then they have all the others are branches. What people don't understand, or many people don't understand, is that in Lancaster, we're all independent. So our budget for Lancaster Public Library and our branch in Mountville, we have our own budget, we have our own interior policies, we have our own board, and we all are separate from one another. We are not, yes, we share back office with the system, and we share our collections, but beyond that, so the money comes to the system, the county and the state money, and gets divided up between all the libraries. And sometimes that's very frustrating, because even though we serve the largest, we don't necessarily per capita get the most money.
A large service area and a very dense population,
Right.
so very high numbers
Right.
of individual
Right.
users at the library.
Yes.
In a sense, I imagine that having our libraries more independent and funding situations different can serve us well at times, because it gives that flexibility
Right.
to meet the needs of individual communities, because the county isn't homogenous.
Right.
But it presents its own challenges then of...
Because we are really competing with all the other municipalities for funding, and we have to be careful not to go into an area that isn't our service area to ask for funding, because we all have our own areas. So in some respects, that helps that we have a large service area, because we have a lot of donors, organization and company donors that we can
within the
lean
city
on.
here. Yeah.
But it's always a struggle, because it's not, we don't have one funding stream that we know every year we're going to get X amount of dollars. So
Oh, that must be such a challenge as
it is a challenge.
prices keep rising. And I think there will be many listeners who are surprised to hear how funding works for libraries in Pennsylvania, especially if they've come from another state, that it's
Absolutely.
state controlled, that
Yes.
it must be a surprise that we're nonprofits and are
Yes.
knocking on doors
Yes.
to keep our services going.
And people, I think, also think, well, it's free, so it must be free to us too. No, it's not free to the library. We are paying for the books. We are paying for anything that we are streaming. We are paying salaries. You know, a lot of people come in and say, "Oh, are you all volunteers?" No, you know, many of us have masters. We have, our education is based on what a library should be, and we follow those best practices. And that surprises people at times.
Having that robust team that serves us well in the face of those funding challenges of we're all, I think I speak for all of us when we say we love what we do, and
Absolutely.
we're going to champion the library and look at those challenges with optimism.
Absolutely. I mean, if you think Lancaster Public Library started in 1759, it is 2025 now, and we're still here, and we're still strong, and we're not going anywhere. But it is a challenge, and if we got the $5 per capita, that would be an extra $1 million, a little over $1 million that we could easily use. However, we will continue offering what we can. We keep saying if we had extra money, we would do ABC. We don't necessarily get to ABC, but we will continue to serve the community the very best way possible.
That's perfect. Well, before we let you go, I don't want to keep you too long, but we always open up episodes now with a question for me and Theodore. What are we currently reading? And we can't let you go without asking that same question for you.
I am a librarian who has horrible recall of title names. I am one of those patrons that say it's a blue book with an orange,
Your
bird
favorite
on it.
kind of challenge,
So
then.
I wrote it down so that I would I would get it right. I actually have 2 books going that I'm reading and one on audio. The 2 that I'm reading, one is A Well-Trained Wife by Tia Levings. It's about a fundamentalist who is isolated and abused while following the strict Christian patriotic role and her escape of that. So that is a nonfiction that I realized I had to start reading it very soon because it's my book club book of the month.
Oh, the pressure of the book club.
Yes. So I'm like, okay, because I had already started The Strange Eventful History by Claire Massoud, which spans 7 generations of a family starting in World War II, moving from France to Algiers and then back to France and all that. So I'm balancing those 2 books. I think the history one will be put aside so I can finish my book club. But I am also listening to When the Going Was Good by Graydon Carter. It is his memoir. He was worked at Time magazine. He started Spy magazine, if anybody is old enough to remember that, from the 80s. And then went on to the New York Observer and spent 25 years as editor of Vanity Fair. And I love listening to memoirs, especially when they are read by the author. And he reads his own book. So I always use that. So that I listen to that sometimes in the car, but usually that's my running soundtrack. And it's a fascinating book, and probably means a lot more to me than some people because I started my career outside of libraries. I started at 17 magazine, and I met my husband when he was at Newsweek, and then he moved to Time Warner. And so, we started in the 80s. And the book
personal to you.
Yes. So I'm like, oh wow, I should have done that, or I could have done that, and he just lived this glamorous life, being the editor of Vanity Fair, and I thought, wow, that would have been really wonderful.
Well, that does sound like a very interesting memoir, but selfishly, I am glad that that's not the path that you ended up on, and that you are here supporting us.
As I said, I changed paths in midlife. It was like, okay. What do I really want to do? So, and you really can thank Southern Methodist University because I was waiting to be accepted in their Masters of English, and they couldn't decide if all of my theater courses would count towards English, and the job opened at the school for a librarian assistant, and the
Well, it was
librarian
fate then. The rest is
pushed me.
history.
The rest is history. Here I am.
Oh, well, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
That was a great selection of books to share, and
Thank
it's
you.
good to hear from another person who also juggles multiple titles at once. Looking at you, Theodore.
And somehow it works, you know.
It does, right?
can go
Variety is the
back.
spice of life.
Yes.
So
you
keep
know,
your
what am I in now? Yeah.
Ah.
But this was wonderful. Thank you so much for asking me to
Of
be
course,
here.
of course.
And
Thank you for being
thank
here.
you for your service at Lancaster Public Library.
you're more than welcome.
We could not do it without the fabulous staff. It makes my
you.
job very easy. So thank you.
Of course. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Amanda. That was a fantastic interview and really eye-opening. It's nice to get that kind of perspective from someone that we don't get to work with one-on-one every day like me and you do.
Yeah, it was interesting to be able to talk to Lissa, that we're both very dedicated to what we do, but we have such vastly different roles that it was nice to hear more of what's involved with being a director, and talking about some of the challenges involved with that, specifically talking about funding for a good portion of it. We got into that topic for quite a bit, and hearing how she navigates all that and still serves the community well despite grappling for
Exactly. It's always that balance, right? Of, we are offering a service that, is intended to be and is and should be free to the community, but also figuring out how to provide those new books, those new movies, new toys, things like that. And I think she's been doing a great job doing that. So it was great to, hear more about that from the two of you. Yeah. We do want to reiterate one thing that was talked about in that interview by Lissa, is just how much all of the support that we get, from the entire community, from our volunteers. I mean, we have a bookstore in here that's entirely volunteer run. It is a Juliana bookstore. And all of our shelving, almost all of it, is done by volunteers. There's just so many people who come through this door every day. And just the act of walking through the door.
I was going to say, Library Love looks like so many different things.
Exactly.
Checking out a book, being in the space, supporting things like the podcast, volunteering your time. All of our program partners that give their time and energy to our programming for free.
A lot of that. I mean, hundreds of hours every year, if not more. And it's just kind of incredible that we get to do what we do on, such, a tight budget, but it's because of the support that we get from everybody else. And we just really appreciate that. And I think Lissa has said before that, when someone has asked her, like, what can you do to support the library? Just, what can anyone do? And it's just to check a book out. Like, when you come through the doors, when you check a book out, that shows the community that we're needed. And,
Even just telling someone how much you love the library, showing over and over again that the community needs and appreciates the library is honestly the best way to make sure that we stick around.
It is, yeah. And on that note, every year, if you're a Lancaster native, you definitely know about this, but Extra Give is coming up. It is November 21st. It's always a super fun night. We'll actually have 2 tables that evening, one at Tellus 360 and one at Decades, both fantastic spots in the city. And that's definitely for us one of the keystones of the fundraising year, but it's also just a lot of fun. So definitely, even if, you can't give, we know,
we recognize that it's a tough time for everyone financially. If it is not in your capacity to give financially, that is A-okay.
Yeah, but you could even just come see us, say hi. We appreciate it.
It's a party.
It's a party.
We want you to join.
Yeah, we just want you to have fun too. And we'll have tons of information about Extra Give in the description, and any other information about this episode, any supplemental materials, reading lists, things like that. So yeah, we hope you'll join us for that.
Yeah, well, I think that's just about
That's just about everything for this episode.
Yeah. So we hope that you will check back in to Checked Out next month.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us. Have a good one.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.